Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Notary Titans. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of Sign and Thrive, Notary Training Course and Community, and NotaryCoach.com. And Carol Ray's with us. Carol is the founder of NotaryToPro.com. Carol, how's it going today?
I'm sleepy.
Have you been getting any sleep over there?
Clocks went back.
Problems.
So I can't figure. I guess I don't get as much sleep at the beginning when the clocks go back.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, because this is usually, yeah. Anyway, I'll wake up in a little bit.
Well, good. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And can you tell us something that you might be excited about this week?
No.
Surprise, we're going to talk about this.
No, I am, I'll tell you what I'm really excited about, and I know you're seeing this too. I am seeing people so new to this business just take it off. I can't believe how quickly so many of the graduates are like doing great.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting to watch when I get these calls that, oh, I've got my first signing. Oh, I've got my fifth signing. And, they just barely started. So it's exciting. Yeah.
It is definitely exciting. And I think you might agree too, Carol, is I think there's this wave of signing agents that are more prepared than any other signing agents even before them, because the dual training, these TNT calls. I mean, I love that the message of confidence and joy that comes from after their first signing. Sure, there's some hiccups and stuff, but there's such great news. I love waking up to it every morning.
We're finding a generation of people that are just wanting to soak up the news. And I have to say, not because I'm 76 or anything, but a lot of people are like, I want something to do when I'm ready to retire. And a lot of my students, we've talked about this before, the over 50 thing is just amazing. And these are people who've been around a long time. They know what to do to make themselves successful. They just need a little guiding hand, And so it's wonderful to see. It really is. Oh, look at this. See, Dita says, yeah, she's over 60. She looks 40, but she's over 60.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. And I know, so Laura's was not going to be on the call, but it turns out that I think she will join us a little later.
Oh, good.
I'm going to share something that I know she's excited about, because she's been waiting for me to create the landing page for it. But on the 23rd of this month, she is doing another skill builder, a free skill builder for notaries. And it's called Oaths, Acknowledgements, and Jurats. Oh my. So it's really going to dig deep into identifying the difference between those documents, when a sneaky oath might be placed on an acknowledgement or a jurat as well. So there's going to be a free, probably 45-minute to an hour training. Knowing us, it's going to go over an hour, totally free. You just have to register for it right here. I'm going to type this into the chat window right now. We kind of went with the whole Oz theme there. It's just NotaryCoach.com/Oz. That's the registration link, totally free to join on the 23rd of November. And then for me, guys, I do have something super exciting to share. The book I have been chatting about that Carol wrote the foreword on is finally released. This book launch has not been going according to plan at all, but the print edition is available on Amazon right now. You can go to signandthrive.com, and I actually put links to Amazon on there, so you can get both the Kindle is available for pre-order. It launches this Thursday. And then the print edition is actually available right now. So if you guys want to support, I'd love it. We're trying to do some big things with that, but of course, no pressure to do that either. Shout out to my book launch team, the BLT. We had 333 members on that, and they just really helped find a lot of typos and proofreading errors and editing errors, but they're also helping this thing launch to a success as well. So thank you guys. If you're a part of that, I really appreciate it. Now, with all that said, Carol, what do you say? Shall we jump in?
Sure.
All right. We got some questions here. Oh, Carol, by the way, thank you for writing such a kind forward on that. That really turned out nice.
How long did that take me?
You had it to me in like 7 minutes. It was pretty.
The point is, that when you write from your heart, when you speak from your heart, it flows. You don't have to think about it. So when you asked me to do that, I sat here, and you're right, it was under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And because I wrote from my heart, and what I said was my truth. It's an excellent book. You did a great job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And then Janet, yes, I will have Audible. I'll be recording the Audible probably this week before I leave for the symposium next week. So it'll probably be released within 30 days. So we'll get that out for you. So if you'd rather listen to my voice even more, you can do that as well. I'll record my own. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at this because we got some great questions. The first one, Carol, I'm going to throw right into your court because this is the P Corps question, which I think it's been several months since we talked about it. So maybe you can.
That's a horrible form.
The P Corps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alicia wants to know what's up with reviewing the per diem page in the P Corps. And that's pretty much a California specific deal.
It's actually pretty easy, and that is primarily for California. I don't know if other states are doing the PCOR, which is the preliminary change of ownership form. Per diem is really fairly easy to figure out. What it's telling people is if you, when a loan funds, it immediately starts to accrue interest. So if they do a signing and if they have the ability to fund it on Friday and, like, let's say close on Monday or Tuesday, they need to be aware of the fact that they are going to be paying interest from the day of funding until the loan is recorded. And that might be a couple of extra days. So they are given a choice to say, no, I don't want to fund on Friday. I don't want to pay interest on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's fund it on Monday, close it on Tuesday or Wednesday, and that saves me money. Most people don't care. They just want to get the dang thing funded and over with. So, but they, you can explain it to them that way, that it just saves them a little money. Maybe it could save them as much as $80, $90, depending on the loan amount and the interest rate. But that's what it is. As far as the preliminary change, is that good enough?
Yeah, that was really good. What would you say if somebody just doesn't get it, though? Because I think we run into that a lot. People just don't understand it. Is that a question that you just defer to the loan officer or the closing agent?
If they really don't get it, but I'll tell you what, in all of these years that I've been doing this, and I've handled thousands and thousands of signings with that document, I've never really had you just have to be, you almost have to treat a lot of people like children because people's minds work. Some people just get it right away, and other times you sort of have to draw a picture. And so I've always had success in just handling it that way, almost drawing a picture. This is what happens if you fund on Friday, and this is what happens if you fund on Monday or Tuesday, and you draw it out and say, that's how it's going to cost you more. And most people will go, I don't care, get it funded. Do it right away as soon as you can. That's it. If you run into serious problems with somebody not understanding something about the loan, terms of their loan, or how something came to be, yeah, absolutely, I defer them to their loan officer. I will say one thing, though, because I ran into this many times, is that unless they're instructed to call their loan officer, if the loan officer says, here's my cell number, call me if there's a problem, unless that happens, I would say it's up to the notary to read her or his instructions, because sometimes those instructions will say you need to call the service. If there's questions, call the service. And the reason for that is, I don't know if it's still happening, but I know when I was doing it, sometimes they would get a phone call from the loan officer who would say basically that notary was a moron. They called me from the table to ask me this dumb question. So you have to be aware of who everybody working together, and definitely read your instructions. If they say call the service first, let them deal with the loan officer. If you've been given instructions to call the loan officer, then you can do it from the table.
Got it. Tammy asked a follow-up question. Some lenders don't have the per diem form filled in. Shouldn't we have that right at the table?
Yes, I think they should, and I have seen times when they don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's their responsibility to advise their customer, not mine.
Yeah. And I found that most borrowers, like you said, Carol, they're not all that concerned with it. It's just one of those documents that has to be signed. And if they have any questions, then they just reach out to the lender and they can fill it in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Let's jump into the next question here. I knew that one would take a little bit of time. Oh, here we go.
Did you want to talk about that PCOR?
Oh, do you?
Not really, but I will because it's important.
Yeah.
It's grown. In the beginning years, there was like maybe 6 or 7 questions on it. And as the years go on, they add more, like everything else, documents. If there's ever a dispute, they call the lawyers in, let's create more documents, protect ourselves. And that PCOR has grown to the point where it's ridiculous, some of the questions. But the borrowers are the ones that have to answer that question. They know what they did when they first purchased the property. They know what they're doing now. And it's really not that difficult if they actually read. Is the D, and what that is the transfer. It covers conveyance documents like grant deeds and quitclaim deeds and things when a property is being transferred to someone or being sold. So they need to look at it and say, is this between a husband and wife? Yeah, this grant deed is putting my wife back onto the property, or this one is a quitclaim deed and it's taking her off of my property or his off the property. So just have them read it because you can't answer these things. They have to do it. And you'll find something that fits. But it's time consuming.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, number one, it takes a lot of time. And number two, it feels like we should be helping them along, but we really can't. That is their responsibility to fill that out. I have seen like the OCD escrow officers sometimes they're up on it. They've guided the borrower so they know what to expect and know how to answer the questions. But for the most part, we're all in the same boat on that one. There's not necessarily a way to do that better than another. And now the thing is, though, that's for property in California only, right? Are there any other states that you know of, Carol, that has that?
I'm not familiar with that. I don't think we had them. Well, you tell me. When we were in Arizona, I don't remember seeing anything.
Yeah, they're not here for sure. And I thought somebody said there was something similar over on the east or in the south. But right now, California is the only one I know of.
And Judy just said that she had one in Texas, but it was for California property.
Yeah.
It's a requirement of the recorder's office. That's who requires that. Is the county recorder's offices in the counties in California. It's not a lender thing.
Excellent. Dita says, what's a Ladera loan? Carol, have you ever heard of a Ladera loan?
No.
I've never heard of a Ladera loan either. If anybody has any feedback, just type that into the chat window there.
Maybe it's go to a rotten loan company and dare them give you a loan. I don't know.
A Ladera, I dare you. Yeah, cute. Let's see. Patricia says the non-borrowing spouse has signed the mortgage or the deed of trust. Does she initial as well in all the places that say initial on that document? Lakeisha, I'm going to mute you. Patricia, the general rule of thumb is that the people whose name is typed on the document. So if she's typed on there and she's signing the document, then she would also initial the document as instructed as well. Carol, anything to add on that?
No.
What about other places for initialing where both signatures are required? Again, same rule. If they're signing it, they're expected to initial it as well. It's important also to stay conscientious when you're on the documents. because there are times where it will say, borrower one, borrower initial, or co-borrower initial, or signer one, signer two, however it's worded. So just make sure they're initialing in the correct place. But general rule of thumb, they're on the document for a signature, then they're on the document for initialing.
One of the things to point out, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again because it's important, especially when you're new, a lot of people are very confused about borrowing spouses and non-borrowing spouses. And the easiest way when you get a set of documents to find out if there's a non-borrowing spouse is to look at your 1003, your residential loan application. It's so easy. Who is the borrower? Oh, okay, the wife is the borrower. Who is the co-borrower? Nobody's there. There's no one's name on that. That means that the husband is a non-borrowing spouse. That makes it so simple, because they'll look through the documents and, well, where are the signatures supposed to be? So if you're new, just remember that. It's very easy.
Yep, good suggestion. Janet says, can you repeat that? Do they initial all documents when specified? I don't know exactly what you mean, Janet, but you initial documents when the initials are called for. And so I'm not sure if that helps clarify it, but let's use the deed of trust example. A lot of times on the deed of trust, you'll have 15 pages or 17 pages, and they all have to be initialed by all parties that are named on the document. So let's just say it's Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith. So they each sign it. They're both responsible for initialing each document as well. Even if there's just one initial line, which a lot of times you'll see, they both need to initial that. Okay, cool. And then if you ever have follow-up questions, guys, I know Carol makes herself really available. I'm available as well. You can book a phone call with me. If we want to dive into something specific, we certainly can. So Janet's now clarifying. So the non-borrowing spouse only initials the docs they have signed. Sorry, yes. So again, non-borrowing spouse is totally different than the situation that we just talked about. But you do not have people initial documents that they are not named on, unless you have specific instructions about it. Sorry, I'm going to mute everybody, guys. We got lots of background noise. Okay, there we go. That brings up a great reminder, guys. We can hear everything. So if you unmute yourself, we can hear you writing. We can hear paper shuffling. So make sure that you're in a quiet environment if you unmute. The other huge one is if your camera's on, we can see everything. So if you don't want to be seen, just turn your camera off so we can't see it. All right, let's move on to the next question here. Lana says, I would like to know if she has worked in an attorney state. I want to hear more ideas on how I can build my business in an attorney state. Now, Carol, we get this question a lot. I'll go ahead and unmute you here. Sorry, Carol. And I've been getting these more frequently as well. So can we just talk a little bit about what it takes to build both the loan signing agent business and maybe even a little general notary work in an attorney state?
Well, I have a lot of graduates in attorney states. And what I always tell them is that it is not where the property is. It's not where the signing service, the title company, or the lender is. It's where the people are. And people are so transient in this country today that as long as you live near people who might be doing a refi on a property in one state that's not an attorney state, then you can handle everything. And there are attorneys who do hire and work with notary signing agents in their business because they may have to oversee the transaction. I'm sure you've experienced this, having a out-of-state property to sign. It comes from an attorney state. Like I've had this several times from Georgia. And it says the attorney will be calling you during the signing to ask a few questions. And they call and they're on the phone for 6 or 7 minutes. And you see the bill there for $450 to $700. Now they, I'm sure, spend time in the background, overlooking the transaction, but basically there's not a lot that they do. There's a lot that a notary signing agent can do, and general notary work, and a lot of the other things that in any state people would go after. Somebody just said, Linda, yeah, it's not where the property is located. It is where, I mean, the business doesn't depend on where the property is. It depends on where the people are. So if they're close to you and there's transactions being done, whether it be that state or another state, as long as the property is out of state, you can handle it.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Here's what's interesting. Deb, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah. This is Deb. I am in an attorney state. I'm in Massachusetts, and for the most part, I know with a couple of packages that I did, the signer did have a release, which is a state document that releases them that says that they can get their own attorney. Now, I've done sellers packages and mods and everything else. The only thing that evidently I can't do is purchases in my state. So they may want to check to see how that goes, either contact the attorney general or something like that for the state and see how that goes.
Awesome.
But
Thank
I've
you,
been
Deb.
able to do
Yeah,
all other transactions outside of purchases.
Thank you.
Each state has its own limitations as to what the attorneys are expected to do too.
Yeah, that's a huge disclaimer here, guys, is it's so hard to get just a solid yes or no answer. So a lot of this is up to interpretation, but you have to do your own due diligence in your state. Now, I'm on a quest. I like solid answers. So I've been talking to attorneys that interpret different laws. And here's kind of what it's boiled down to with the attorneys I've spoken to. Now, this is not advice, but this is what they've told me, is that in most of these states that are attorney states, it is written that closing a real estate transaction, an attorney must be present or involved. And then the interpretation of that is a little different. So the present or involved just means, like, a lot of times these closing attorneys are fulfilling the same roles that closing agents out here in the West, like escrow officers, are doing. They're making sure the documents are correct. Sometimes they're drafting those documents. They might be recording them. They make sure that everybody that's supposed to get paid gets paid. So very similar roles. And just like an escrow officer, these closing attorneys can absolutely hire an independent contractor to go out and gather signatures. And when you really, in the eyes of the law, look at what we're doing, that's what we're doing. We're gathering signatures. We are not closing loans. That's the real important differentiator there. An attorney must be present or involved in the closing of a real estate transaction. That's not our job. We're not recording documents. We're not cutting checks, making sure that the real estate transaction gets closed. So that's a huge indicator. Our job is to briefly describe the documents, gather signatures, and make sure the documents get returned. We're kind of working under the umbrella of the attorney or the escrow officer or the closing agent, whatever it might be. So that's how they interpret that as well, those attorneys that I've been talking to. So hopefully that adds some clarification there for you as well. And like Georgia has the most attorneys that have wanted to just sit on the phone or just check in with the borrower. Hey, if you have any questions on this, and then they hang up. But the other big thing is, in states like Georgia, attorneys might see you as a threat to their business. So there's been a lot of intimidation against signing agents in Georgia in particular, because attorneys want all the loan signing business for themselves. So you might run into some pushback there. So you have to be really particular about where you get your information as well.
There's other states as well, Bill, that attorneys are trying to take over.
Yeah. South Carolina is a huge one too. I see Christie's in South Carolina. Yeah, she can do purchases on properties outside of South Carolina, just not in South Carolina. I would say South Carolina is the most strict. Okay, great question, Lana. Thank you. So Angela says, I'm just starting out, don't know a lot about any of this, going for a new career change, but want to feel confident in what I do. I'm a perfectionist. I just want to do it right. So is there some sort of class for the general side of this business as well? And I don't know what state Angela's in. So it's really hard to give a suggestion here, but I think Google is your best way to find a local live classes. If you don't want to do that, I can say, I don't know if Laura's on the call yet, but Laura Buer has coachmelora.com, and she offers one-on-one training. Plus she has the replay library where she teaches us how to do specific documents in that. That would be a great starting point for you. And then also just studying your state statutes. Believe it or not, that's a great place to start. A lot of people, a lot of notaries don't even read their state statutes. So just by reading, studying those, you'll probably be way ahead of the game as well. Carol, do you have any suggestions though? Because what I'd really like to talk about on this one is that perfectionism and how it really jams people up. Do you run into that with some of the new students on the loan signing side?
Sometimes, but to be honest with you, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those escrow officers, and well, you know, what I did, where I had OCD, I really did. I know you talk about that, and that was me. But you know what? It makes people better. And I don't expect ever for somebody to be, perfect. And I get enough phone calls when people are in signings and there's a problem to know that not everybody is perfect. They don't know everything, but strive.
Hey, Carol, you went mute all of a sudden.
How's
there
that?
You go. There you go.
No, I think that that's a good thing. You don't have to be perfect to do this job, but you want to be as right on with everything that you do as you can to keep yourself out of trouble, to inform people what they're doing in the correct way, not giving them too much or not enough information. So she's doing the right thing. She's on this call for one thing. Ask questions. Don't hesitate. If you're taking training from someone, ask questions. If they're not willing to work with you and answer your questions, then find somebody else. Bill mentors, I mentor. Laura is great if you're looking for something as far as the general notary work. I am not an expert at general notary work. I'm an expert at being a signing agent, but find somebody who's an expert like her to help you walk you through that gate.
Yeah, I love that. I like to say strive to be the expert no matter what we're doing. And perfectionism is an all right goal as long as you don't let it stop you from moving forward. Perfection does not exist. There's never going to be a perfect anyone doing anything. So you've got to let go of that in some ways. You can strive to be the expert. You can strive to do your best, but you still have to take action. And if you don't take action until you're perfect, then you'll never take action because that just never will exist. So at some point, you've got to get your training, you've got to boost your confidence, and then you have to take a step.
I love this. Jim DeVoy just said, when we chase perfection, we're sure to catch excellence.
Ooh,
that's a great, I've never heard that. I love that. That is great. Thank you, Jim. Good
one. I'm going to put that on the coffee mug. Tell Bill. All right, Linda says, I'm a new notary. I'm so confused about fees right now. I read in all the forums that everyone is sick of notaries accepting lowball fees. Understandable, but if you don't have any experience, how do you get a signing for $100 or $125? All of the texts I've received are lowball offers. I've countered with a higher fee, but never getting the assignment. I think I've shot myself in the foot by not taking lower paying assignments just for the experience. Now for those same signing companies, they don't contact me at all. Now, Carol, I know you've had kind of a reversal on this. I know we get to talk about it a lot, but what can you suggest for Linda?
Well, Chris, we're very lucky because we have this list of over 100 companies. They do pay well, but with anything, like anything else, you're not going to go out and be a carpenter without going through the process of learning how to be a carpenter and getting your your credits. Same thing with the signing agent. If you walk out there, because I hear all the time, and I know you do it, Bill, and you encourage people to go to the title companies and the escrow companies. But frankly, with my graduates, when I hear that first thing out of their mouth, you've got to earn it. You've got to know what you're doing, and you have to start building up your reputation, building up the, the business that you've had, that you can go into a company and say, yes, I've done this many signings, and these are companies that work with me, and this is what I'm worth, and start working with companies that are willing to pay you more. I like the idea now, and I've never done it before. And I've said this, I've done a 180-degree turn as far as people going out and taking really what they can get, but with limits. Please don't take $30, $40, $50 signings. If they come across at $65, $70, it's not as much as I would like to see my graduates earn, but at least they're building their business. They're building their experience. And once you get to that point where you do have that solid experience, companies that have hired you and they're giving you good ratings, now you can get into those companies that are willing to pay you more money. It's not going to work just to demand or negotiate. There's too many companies out there that are getting away with these $50, $40, $50 signings.
Yep, totally agree. And to offer you some perspective too, remember a lot of times when we're looking at the chatter in a Facebook forum, we might be looking at people who have been in the business for 20 years. So they're frustrated over $60, $70 signings, and they're used to getting paid $125. In the beginning, and the way the market has shifted or the way technology has shifted, it might be different. So we never know what perspective the people making those posts is coming, where that's coming from. The thing is, you don't owe anybody an explanation over what fees you take. You don't owe that to anybody. The weight of this industry does not rest on your shoulders in that way. You are the only one that knows what your situation is. If you've got mouths to feed, if you've got to make this business work, then you've got to make this business work, and you get to decide that. I posted an article I wrote about that in the chat window too, so feel free to take a look at it as well.
There is a problem though that they have to be aware of. And like you said, people, we don't know what their needs are. And if those $50 signings are helping them, that's fine. But don't get so deep into those signings that you don't have time when a good company comes across and is willing to pay you $100 or $125. And this is the thing I warn my students about, because I've seen this happen where they're going, oh my God, I am like working from morning till night. I'm making $300 a week. I'm like, look. And then they don't have time. They don't have the time to explore and continue to, sign up with companies that are willing to pay them a little bit more. And that just kills their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, if you take a $50 signing, it's almost guaranteed that you probably won't take another one, because those are the ones where everything goes wrong. The printing never works out right. The documents come late, and you're going to be like, this is not worth it for $50 a signing, or $40 a signing, $30 a signing, whatever it might be. So you'll end up demanding more that way. From H, I've been contacted by a title company to work directly for them. However, I met them through working with a signing agency. I initiated no direct contact. Is this considered poaching when the title company contacted me directly? I'm feeling a little ethically ambiguous. Carol, I'm curious. What do you think?
Her feelings are correct.
Feeling
when
a
you
little
feel that way, there's something in there that says, no, that's not right. It's not right. And I'm a big defender of signing services. I know a lot of people aren't, but gosh, when I got started, if it hadn't been for signing services, I wouldn't have had anything. And they've been wonderful. They did the work for me. They did the footwork. I didn't have to go out and knock on doors and do all of that. I worked with some great signing services who are still in business. And I'm very grateful to them because it gave me a great 14-year career as a signing agent. And I made a lot of money. Bill and I did it together for 7 years, and we did really well. So I never put down the signing services, and I would never poach work. I would never work for somebody who tried to poach me from a signing service.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there for me. So I got two perspectives on this. From a signing company side, obviously that wouldn't feel good, right? But if a notary or one of my clients went directly to a notary and just cut me out of it after, there's a lot of effort that goes into building and cultivating relationships. I think that the signing company has some responsibility for maintaining the strength of that tie, but at the same time, trust that gut. If it doesn't feel right, it may not be right. And here's the key point that Carol made for me. If that escrow officer is willing to just cut ties with somebody she has a relationship with to work with me, the hard lesson I've learned in life and in business is that it is only a matter of time before that comes to me. It's going to be my turn at some point. Yeah. So if I cut off, like, you're going to lose the relationship with the signing company, number one, and they probably will give you more business than the escrow officer ever would have, because they have tons of clients. The escrow officer only has the files on her desk. But if she's that ready and willing just to sever ties, then the next shiny object or shiny notary that comes along, she's just going to dump me too. And then I have lost her, and I've lost the signing agency that originally sent me there. So I think the gracious way to handle that was just say, hey, I really appreciate this. However, I have a great relationship with the signing company, and I'd much prefer that we work through them, and we can make me the preferred. So they will just send me to you for as many times as they can. I think that would be the win-win there.
Yeah, exactly. Let them know I'm there for you. You just need to let the signing service know who you prefer. Who do you want?
Great question. I love questions like that, because that's real life. And when you're really good at what you do and you're showing up 100%, this is going to happen more and more often. People are going to be drawn to you. They're going to want to work with you. Okay, so Vivian says, I'm in California and I had an out-of-state buyer purchase. One of the documents had an acknowledgement where both the buyer and the seller needed to sign and be notarized on one page. The buyer had an acknowledgement on the top page and the seller on the bottom. After notarizing the buyer's signature, I hesitated to cross out the seller's portion to be notarized before submitting the loan documents back to the signing company. Should I have crossed out the seller's acknowledgement portion? Or do you write something on the paperwork after you cross it out, or what is best practice in a situation like this? Carol, we haven't seen the document, but it sounds to me like there was a top section with a full notary block for the buyer and a bottom section with a full notary block with the seller. So let's assume that. Did she do it correctly?
You don't have to worry about it. Don't do anything. The only time you ever cross anything out is if you've got more than one person listed on the notarial acknowledgement and you have a split signing. And you know, Mr. Smith is appearing before you, Mrs. Smith is appearing in another state in front of another notary, then you always need to put a line through the person who's not appearing before you, and then let the other notary do a separate acknowledgement. In this case, I wouldn't touch, just have your buyer or the seller sign it and, you know, complete the acknowledgement, and then let the other person deal with it, because they may be using the same documents. They may not, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You'll see these occasionally. Sometimes there'll be a place where the lender actually has to sign and notarize. So there's a separate block for whoever represents the lender, and then they'll have their own notary block, but you've notarized the buyers. That's totally acceptable. All right, great. Guillermo says, okay, because this is right from my email. What questions do you have? What challenges do you face, and what's frustrating you? So Guillermo says, the questions are about strategy and marketing directly to escrow agents. He's been doing this now for a couple of years, I think. What challenges do you face? The challenge is getting past the secretary, which leads to the frustration. Are there any ways to get past the secretary to get business from escrow agents. And I know I've got my theories on this too, but Carol, you were an escrow officer. What do you have any tips for getting past the gatekeeper?
One of the things I think that for most people to know is who is in charge. The escrow managers are in charge. If you can get to the escrow manager for a title company, whatever escrow company in California, of course, we have independent escrow companies, real estate companies where they have escrow departments. You want to try to get to that person, that person in charge, and do your best to see if you can get a little time with them. Bill, you're used to doing this, so you can pop in here. But I would say go after the manager rather than the escrow officer. Almost all the time, escrow officers are probably overloaded with work. I mean, I know we were, and there's really no time for them to just sit and chat with somebody. Whereas an escrow manager might be open to having somebody come in from, an independent come in and help them out at times. That's a suggestion for me. And not because I was an escrow officer and a manager.
Do you, I'll chime in here too, because this is how I avoid gatekeepers, is I just bypass the gatekeeper altogether. There's an old way of doing this, and then let's call it a more innovative way of doing this. So the old way is picking up the phone and saying, hi, is your manager available? Or hi, is your escrow officer available? The gatekeeper's job is to help those escrow officers and managers be as productive as possible. So they are going to stop you from interrupting them. So if you approach it as a sales call, you'll probably get blocked. To bypass that, though, my whole strategy altogether that worked for me is to get to, because I'm a shy introvert. I do not want to just cold call. I don't want to pop in. I don't want to pick up the phone and talk to a stranger. I want to talk to a friend. So I got to find a way to warm them up before we have those types of conversations. So that's why, like, I see somebody mentioned LinkedIn and other forms of social media, Google. Research the people that you're going to talk to. I would say the easy way, because it doesn't require any research, is just to pick up the phone and call, or pop in and try to get your foot in the door. That's somewhat easy for some people because you don't have to put any effort into figuring out who the right person to talk to is. But if you sit down and if you put in 10 or 15 minutes on the front end of these meetings, your communication will be way more authentic. It'll be way warmer, and you'll be talking more on a friend level than on just a cold salesy level. You find out what they're interested in, what they're doing. LinkedIn is amazing because vice presidents, supervisors, they brag about their employees on there. So if I see somebody just got the President's Choice Award for their company and they're going to the Caribbean for a week-long business trip, then that's what I'm going to use in my communication. Hey, Lisa, congratulations on your President's Circle membership. I know that took a lot of effort. Nice to meet you. And just let that be what it is. In my signature, I have everything that I am. I'm just laying the foundation. One of the other challenges that we get to talk about a lot on here too, Carol, right, is that you go from asking them to dance to wedding proposal in the same conversation. That's such a turnoff. Nobody wants that lack of boundaries there. It's not going to get you anywhere. Allow the relationship to organically grow. Sometimes it happens super fast, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time and constant communication. And that's why we say the fortune's in the follow-up, because one communication is very rarely what it takes to build a relationship. We're talking 7 to 15 times communicating with somebody before they finally let you in. It does take effort to build these types of relationships. Anything else on that one, Carol?
I have a great example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really good example. When I was, it says my internet's unstable. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Bill?
We can hear you. It just, oh, there you go. You're back.
Okay. When I was running an escrow company, and I came there, their business was way, way down. And so it was my responsibility to go out and get work, get real estate agents. And I would go to some of the local real estate companies and kind of get to know people. And then every week I would go to, there was one company I went, and they had a huge office. It was a Century 21 office, but they were brand new. And when I went there, the owners, husband and wife, had one agent, just one. And they were painting their brand new office. They were painting the walls themselves, not painters. And every week I went back there to visit them, to say hello. They had one agent. Well, they went in, how long did it take them? Probably 6 or 8 months. After 6 or 8 months, they went from one agent to over 100 agents. That office got big, and guess whose escrow company they used? Almost exclusively. It took me going in every week with nobody there, just trying to trust me. And then it provided a great income for myself, for the company. It was terrific. And I think that was a real good lesson for me, how hard you have to work, but it's worth it.
Totally worth it. Totally worth it. There's not an easy, fast pill. You've got to be willing to put in the time on a relationship. It's, we use the, like, I love what Jeanette said, notary love at first sight. We wish that you just met somebody and it just sparked and it was magic. And guys, I'll tell you, sometimes it actually happens that way. Sometimes you just connect with somebody like, oh my God, I'm using you. This is going to be it. But for the most part, it takes time and commitment. You got to prove that you're trustworthy. It's that know, like, and trust. They got to get to know you. They got to figure out if they like you, and they got to know if they can trust you. I talk about this at the symposium a little bit too, is you can be amazing at this job. You can be, know exactly how to sign, date, and stamp some paper. But if you're not good with people, or if you're not a good bookkeeper and people have to beg you to pay you and you're just not likable and it's not easy to work with you, you will not make it in this business. People need the whole package. They would rather teach you and coach you and bring you along because you are a joy to be around and you light up the office than if you're just super rigid and tight and you sure everything looks perfect, but you're mean to them or you're mean to the customers. Okay, let's get to the next question. Oh, actually,
I like what Kathleen said.
What? Oh. Business networking groups always have mortgage or loan officers in them. Socialize with them, and often people use services from people they know and like. Yeah, perfect, Kathleen. That's exactly right. That's why these networking events exist. I know networking gets a bad rap because you have to think that you have to go in there and just network. But if you actually use it as it was originally created, as a way to get to know each other and to connect, it can be super, super powerful. The problem is people just come in and they're flinging out business cards and they're collecting as many business cards as they can. And it feels so salesy that it feels icky. But when you're in a good networking group that fosters authentic relationships, it can be really, really powerful.
Icky? Did you just use the word icky?
The word icky. Icky. I don't like to feel icky. Patricia Bridges, you have a question.
You're blushing.
I'm always blushing.
I love it.
Red is my natural hue. Patricia Bridges, you have a question.
I forgot what it was, Bill. It's been so long. What I will say to you and to Laura and to anybody new, if they follow what you all said, I have joined the local Chamber of Commerce, all the directories. In fact, I got a new signing service because they said they got me from Notary. I'm about to say the wrong one. The 123 Notary, they signed me up. I negotiated the fee because I did start with low fees, but I thought of it as tuition. But I treated everyone like I was making $200. So they accepted the fee I offered. did it last night, and I'm part of their crew. They accepted all my credentials. And thanks again, Carol, for that reference letter. They like that too. So Bill, Laura, Carol, you all are dynamite, TNT all together. But thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. If you think of your question, give me a heads up. I'm going to put your hand down. So if you raise your hand again, I know you'll have your question. All right. How are we doing on time? We got about 10 more minutes. Let's get a few more questions done. All right. From Chris, is it okay to send a postcard to individuals who have used my services in the past to keep me fresh in their minds and possibly drum up some referrals or networking opportunities? I have their address in my notary journal. Chris, I'll jump in here first, and Carol, I know you'll probably have some feedback as well. So I highly recommend that you stay in touch with the people that you sign. I don't know necessarily that I would use the notary journal address. I like to be proactive in this and start from the very beginning. After every signing, or even general notary work, especially general notary work, guys, send a thank you card to the signers, or congratulations, or a nice to meet you card, whatever it might be. So you have them then in your database. This is where the power of a CRM tool or a customer relationship management tool really comes into play. And I like to get permission. Hey, I'd love to stay in touch and I love to send thank you cards. Would it be okay with you if I do that? So then I can send them a thank you card, and then I can continue to send them correspondence throughout the year. I like to do this via email as well. That's where the real power of the CRM comes in. So you can send out information. Maybe it's ID updates or law changes or whatever you come up with that shows your personality, your journey, whatever it might be. But to really create sustainability in this, guys, we have to think outside the box, and we have to treat this like the real business that it is. This is, if you listen to notaries who have been doing this for 40 years, they don't do this, but they're struggling to find clients every day. We don't have to keep playing the same game. We are every day introduced to clients that are going to need us for life. If they needed a notary now, they will need another notary, and they will have friends that need notaries too. So what you've described here, Chris, is what I call the top of mind method. Absolutely do everything you can to stay top of mind. And that's not about selling yourself or selling your services all the time. It's about adding value to people's lives and to the marketplace. And when we add value to the marketplace, our income and our impact goes up. Carol, what do you have to say on that?
I agree with what you're saying. I never did general notary work. I don't make any, stories about that. I just don't. We were so busy with signings. We didn't really do anything, and yet we would get signings from people over the years. Sometimes 2, 3 people would just, somehow remember us and ask for us, and we would wind up going to houses 2, 3, 4 times. Every time they did something with a piece of property, they would call for us. But we were not smart enough to know to leave anything with them. They just asked for us. But I think it's a great idea when you're doing. We're working with my daughter now because she's doing some stuff. She's doing signings, but she really wants to do a lot more general notary work. And there's things that you should do to just remind people you're there, get the word out. That's what you're doing. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Kathy Stroud, you have a question?
I do. Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. I have a quick question. So I'm always in contact with tons of realtors, and I just wanted to figure out, so can they write my name like in the contract under special provisions for closing? Could they write my name to be the signing agent at closing, or I know title and escrow typically determines that, but can you write that in the contract and have that stand?
Great question. So I do know of one real estate agent who does that. I think he words it so there is flexibility for an out if there needs to be. But yes, that's where the real power of a real estate agent, strategic partner can come into play. The problem is that most real estate agents don't realize how much power they have in the transaction. So when you find one that really honors this relationship between their team and a signing agent, it can be really powerful. So yeah, you can write it into the contract, or sometimes even if it's a high performing real estate agent, that real estate agent can just let the escrow officer know right away, this is the signing agent I would like to work with. If there's an approval process, get the ball rolling right away. They need to send you an application, you can get approved, and then if everything works out, you can be the signing agent on that.
Okay. Previously, I was a realtor in another life, but you know, oftentimes I just wanted to provide white glove service to my clients, and in doing so, they, you know, by having me as their signing agent, I can meet them at their convenience, you know, at their home, things like that. Whereas instead of having them have to attend a closing at a title company or another location, so.
Yeah, well, you nailed it right there, the white glove service. And that's exactly this real estate agent that I'm telling you about here in Phoenix. That's what he wants, control over every aspect of the transaction. So he, instead of just being reliant, because he's had so many signings go south, he's had notaries that didn't know what they were doing, he's had escrow officers not know what they were doing. He said, forget it, we're not doing that anymore. So he built this hand-picked team that walks everybody through his clients through the entire process, and he knows no matter what, they're going to be taken care of.
Thank you.
I love it. Yeah, thank you. Great question. Jason Bronstein, your hand's up. You got a question for us?
Actually, I do. How are you? See, I have lots of questions. I'm gonna go to one question. So we talked about forums. I heard you earlier, joined late. So my question is, you guys, everybody you have a Facebook forum, and Carol, you have one. I kind of have one. And my question is, people are providing bad information, bad practices. The biggest one I see is people want to save money on cost. And I see so many people out there saying, oh, give the borrowers a copy, double-sided, or give them a digital on a CD. I know that's a no-no, but there are experienced notaries at 5, 10 years that are doing this and telling people that it's okay. But it's not. How do you put a stop to that? Because there are new people that are going to do that because paper and toner is our biggest expense. But I'd rather buy generic before I do any bad practices.
Great question. Carol, what do you think?
I know of people that do that, and they do it because they're on an extreme budget. I've never done it myself, but I can see why people would. The problem is that if you get into a signing and you've got a situation where you need to use one of those documents, although I don't think we ever substituted. I don't think we ever had to substitute. I don't know. I'm of two minds about this, because for some people that extra few bucks that they're going to save could be really crucial to them. I've not had any of my students that I know of do this, but I have seen that people have done it. I don't think that delivering any less, by doing the two-sided. And I don't know, Jason, if you and I have talked about it before. Jason has a great forum, by the way. It's Safe Haven for Notaries, and it's for new people so they don't get slammed when they open their mouth. But, I don't think it's against anybody's rules or laws to do that. Most people, when you give them that set of documents, they really don't care unless you give them something that's 6 inches huge and it weighs 20 pounds. Some of those documents are ridiculous. And I know that we did for years, we did CDs. People loved it when we put their documents on CDs, because that's all they had to deal with. It was a little CD. They always knew where it was filed. Whereas when they had these huge documents, they never knew where they were, especially in legal size paper. So I'm not one to advise anybody on this. They have to just make their own choices, I think. I don't know if there's any rules against it or not.
aside from that point, how would you help navigate a conversation in a forum where people were giving bad advice, even if it was not necessarily this advice, but if they're giving advice that is not a best practice or not advisable, how would you navigate the conversation?
Well, I do have that happen. And generally, I'll just try to correct it and say, this is really a better way to go, or, do a little bit more research. There are other places where you can check with people. I don't know, somehow we get over that. But there are people who just are out there just giving just wrong, just so much stuff that's wrong. And you have to find a really kind way to correct it, and not, that people giving advice are doing it because they're trying to help.
Yeah.
And if it's wrong advice, you have to try to help them to correct it and know what's right from wrong. It's a touchy thing to do when you're handling a group forum of 5,000 people.
Yeah. There's kind diplomacy that you have to use in that. And you can also, there's perspectives. Everybody has their different perspectives. So you can honor somebody else's perspective and then provide your own. That might be stronger than the person who asked for the advice, or the other people reading it can make the choice that feels right to them. A lot of the choices we have to make is based on a gut instinct. And one thing that I will offer here too, as we come to a close, is, if you find yourself cutting corners to save pennies, you might be focusing on the wrong things. It's nice to cut our costs. That's a reality. We want to find ways to do that. Sure, there's some tax deductibility to that as well, but if you're doing it for environmental reasons, that's something totally different as well. But if we're trying to just save pennies by putting more time into trading paper or doing duplex, whatever it is, then we might be focusing on the wrong things. If we put that kind of time and energy into cultivating relationships or making new connections, you might not have to worry so much about those pennies. There are people out there willing to pay you enormous sums of money for your services and the value that you bring and the expertise that you bring to the table. Focus on finding those every single day. All right, guys, that's it. Carol, any closing comments?
No, except to say one thing. We always have to keep in mind that there are people that are out there that are young women with 3 kids, no other support, and there are things that they need to do that maybe other people don't need to do, or they wouldn't be able to even afford to work. So that's, because I have had many students over the years that at the beginning are just barely making it, and those pennies become dollars, and those are dollars they can't afford. So I just want to stand up for those people who are having really serious financial difficulties, encourage them to continue to work and do the best they can. And when they can do better, they will.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Guys, thanks for joining us and growing yourself on a Tuesday morning. We will see you next week. Talk to you later.
Bye.